And welcome to the State Champs Power Play Podcast. I'm Jonathan Kidd along with Sean Belegian. Sean, how are you today?
Outstanding, buddy. You know what? We had a fantastic weekend for high school hockey, and we have another darn good weekend coming up as well. So it's all good, I guess, in our world right now.
Before we talk about the MIHL showcase, we just got word on Monday that the first game of the Division I playoffs is going to be Detroit Catholic Central and Northville. Your thoughts?
You just shake your head. You know, you're talking about, I maintain, I think Catholic Central is the best team in the state, and I think what they've done so far has shown it. But Northville is a team that can play and compete with anybody. They're definitely a top 20 team, regardless of division. They're definitely a top 10 team in Division I. I think it's a crying shame. I do. I don't think it's good for the game. To me, you want to do your best to promote your best teams. And I think when some of your best teams are knocking each other off early in the playoffs, and John, I hate to sound like a broken record, but in the interest of being fair, whether it be in the UP, whether it be on the west side, whether it be on the east side, whether it be D1, D2, or D3, it doesn't matter. I think there's a problem when some of your best teams are knocking each other off early in the playoff, let alone the first game of the playoff. So if you follow this to its logical conclusion, you're talking about Stevenson and Plymouth, who, in my estimation, John, are two top 5 teams, regardless of division. And now CC and Northville, you're talking about 4 teams in anybody's top 20 that are going to be playing each other to start the playoffs. There's a problem with that. I challenge anybody out there, regardless of your affiliation, regardless of being a coach, a player, an administrator, I challenge anybody out there to say there's not a problem with that. We all want what's best for the game, and I don't think that's best for the game. That's the way it goes, and, I know Clint Robert, he's a gamer. He's done such a good job there on his watch. He's going to have the Mustangs ready, but I just think there's a problem when you're working like that under those conditions.
And it's going to be the 10-year anniversary of the Northville CC game in 2008 when Northville beat CC 5-4 in overtime.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, 10 years flies. It's just it's unbelievable. 10 years flies by, but hey, you know what? This is the way that it goes, and these are the breaks, and the coaches have to deal with it. They know it, but hopefully we can do something about it in the near future. I really hope we can.
The MIHL showcase was this past weekend at Trenton. Great games, great talent all over the ice. Sean, what was your overview of the showcase?
Yeah, there were so many things that jumped out. I think, number one, Hancock jumped out again. I think Hancock, on one hand, they went 0-2. No. On the other hand, they lost by a goal to Plymouth and Brighton. So if that doesn't tell you what I think a lot of us already knew, that Hancock is one of the top teams out there. And in my opinion, this is my opinion, the team to beat in Division III, I don't know what to tell you. I was very, very happy with the fact that Catholic Central gave Culver everything they could handle. And then Livonia Stevenson followed it up just the same. I mean, I thought that was pretty stinking cool because I think everybody knows what Culver's all about. They might be the best high school team out there, in all honesty. Yeah. So I think for Catholic Central to play them the way they did, and then for Dave Mitchell and the Spartans to play them the way they did, that was awesome. I thought Granville made a great showing because you know as well as I do, there are snobs in every part of the state. There are people on the west side, in the UP, in the east that think their hockey's the best. Joe Brazil doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. Granville doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. But Granville going out there and playing like they did against Stevenson and then getting a win after that, that is awesome. The Granville Bulldogs are totally legitimate, and Joe Brazil's done a tremendous job out there. I mean, so many good stories.
Utica Eisenhower.
Great story. Outstanding story.
We had them on State Champs this past weekend, and they beat Livonia Churchill 3-1. We had those highlights, so you can see it on our YouTube page. And 8-7 over Saginaw Heritage.
Heritage is a legitimate team. I mean, that's a good battle between two good Division I teams. We mentioned it before. I think J.J. Bamberger's done a tremendous job up there. Bob Hall, it really, in my opinion, has flown under the radar for a long time. Utica Eisenhower has quietly become a really good Division I power. And let's not forget, I mean, they have a dynamic player in Matt Haste as well, who has the opportunity, if people already don't know his name and don't know Ike, they've got the opportunity in the upcoming weeks to really make a name, not only Haste for himself, but certainly Ike for themselves. But I've been a fan of Bob Hall from afar for a while, and he's continuing to do the job.
One of the things I saw, Flint Powers, they lost twice down there in the showcase. Any concerns, or is just...
Well, I mean, listen, the elephant in the room, we hear it all the time as well. Who have you played? Who have you played? I think a lot of times what happens is you have to look at this and you have to say, well, who did they lose to? Yeah. They lost to two pretty darn good teams.
Yeah, Calumet and Northville.
Calumet's right there, in my opinion. I'm going to give the edge right now to Hancock by this much, but I think you have to include the Copper Kings in that mix. Hey, what about Corey Markham and Houghton? They went and got two big wins. But Flint Powers is right there in that mix. Travis Perry has done a tremendous job there, and I wouldn't count out Powers. No way, no how.
And Trenton, they lost to Heartland in the rematch of the 2014 state final. And the next day, they beat Plymouth in a shootout. Well, it's 2-1, but, they don't do the overtimes at the showcase. But good comeback win after losing to Heartland the night before.
Yeah, you and I haven't talked about this before the show started, so we're just going to do this live, I suppose. I'm interested to hear your reaction. I didn't see the game. People that saw the game said it was one of the best high school hockey games of the year. I mean, multiple people said that to me.
The Trenton-Plymouth game?
Yeah, the Trenton-Plymouth game. Really the finale of the showcase. So, that doesn't surprise me. We've talked about it before. Trenton is back. No. Now, please take that in the context. It's not like they went anywhere, but Trenton is darn good. And Plymouth, the argument can be made that they're the best team, the team to beat perhaps in Division II right now. I know Livonia Stevenson would have something to say about that. I know Heartland would have something to say about that. But that's a tremendous way to end a great tournament. It was funny, John. Like I said, my phone was blowing up Saturday night.
My phone, too. It was like, where are you?
Dude, this game is unbelievable. So many people said that. So, unfortunately, my day job called that day.
Yeah. And Brighton with the clean sweep as well. It seems like around this time, no one talks about Brighton.
Isn't it amazing? They just, year after year, they play that schedule. They play the out-of-conference slate. They play in the always tough KLAA. And it's like people just kind of forget. And you know what's interesting about it to me is all the close losses that they have, throughout the course of the season. Because really, that's the story of Brighton. How often do you see Brighton get, thoroughly beaten by anybody? I mean, all the close losses that they have during the course of a season, it just makes them that much better in tournament time. In my humble opinion, John, I think what you're looking at in Division I right now is Catholic Central. I hate to say it. I think they are unquestionably the team to be head and shoulders above anybody else. But, we mentioned Ike. You've got Ike out there. You've got Granville out there. You've got Cranbrook. I think you saw over the weekend what Cranbrook can do. And obviously you have Brighton and OLSM. I think this Orchard Lake team, if there was a year that they were going to, quote-unquote, get over the hump and get back to USA, it might be a year like this.
We are now going to the public high school showcase that is this weekend in Chelsea.
Go out there. It's not that far away, really.
Yeah.
If you live in the Metro Detroit area, it's not that far away. We'll excuse you if you're from the UP or something like that. But really, it's not that far away. And, I went out there last year and spent really all Friday out there. It was great. Ran into some old friends out there. Saw a dandy of a game last year with a really good Forest Hill Central team playing Northville. That was a good one. And this year, again, John, there are games, and you've already got the highlighter out. That's John Kidd. He's 2 steps ahead of everybody. We're playing chess. He's 2 moves ahead.
I'm like the Digger Phelps when on ESPN with the highlighter.
But you've already highlighted some games, and I agree with you. I mean, there are some darn good games out here that are worth a look. And, here's the beautiful thing, John, and I forgot to mention this about the MIHL showcase. You know what? The scouts are coming out left and right. Mm-hmm. And that, to the kids out there, I hate to go Don Cherry, but you kids out there, listen. But you know what? If you're a kid out there, the scouts are coming. They're noticing you. High school hockey is a good place to play right now.
We got some good matchups on Thursday. I'm going to be at the Davison Plymouth game on Thursday. The highlights are going to be on State Champs. You know me. I got to get that plug in.
Attaboy,
Sunday, 9
attaboy.
a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. Plymouth has a Player of the Year candidate in Jack Chumley.
Yep.
And Davison, you have him in their top 25 rankings. What do you see in this matchup?
Well, you know what? This is a golden opportunity, in my opinion, for Davison to show people that they're legitimate. Because, again, when you have somebody kind of burst on the scene, I think a lot of people are apt to say, usually from the usual suspects, yeah, okay, whatever. But I think this is a golden opportunity for Davison to say, hey, you know what? We can play with anybody. So I'm intrigued at that one. Saline and Northville's another one. Now, I don't think people maybe outside of the circle that we live in are maybe not aware with Coach Foz, but Paul Fassbender's done a fantastic job at various spots, and he's doing a fantastic job with Saline. And I'm really intrigued because you're talking about two top 20 type teams, and I don't want to forget about Saline in that mix in Division 2 anyway. I mean,
Well, they're
I
going to be
think
playing Trenton in the regional.
yeah, I mean, that's, boy, that region of doom, I'm telling you. But they're a team that definitely deserves to be mentioned. So I'm intrigued at that one. And another one, Ryan Ossenmacher has done a tremendous job out in Salem with a young team this year. And this is a team that happens to get to be getting better as the season progresses. And that's a big matchup against Ike. And Matt Haste, again, I mean, I think he's at 33 goals right now. I mean, he's just tearing it up. Yeah. So that's going to be a fantastic game, I guess the finale, if you will, on Thursday night.
And Chelsea, the host school, they got two good games.
Yeah, the Marquette game I'm intrigued at because I think the Redmen are in a position right now that they could make a run coming from the UP in D2. And I'm really intrigued at Chelsea and West Ottawa as well because West Ottawa is a team that we had ranked, and they're doing some nice things on the west side. Listen, Don Wright put so much into that. I think people know Don Wright has done a good job at Chelsea for a while. But as you can attest to, John, I mean, the work that they put into that and the work that Don Wright puts into putting this Michigan Public High School Hockey Showcase together, it deserves mentioning. And so not only that, he's got double duty. He's got to be coaching out there as well.
You're watching and listening to the State Champs Power Play podcast presented by National Coney Island. I'm Jonathan Kidd along with Sean Belegian. Sean, we're going to talk about the High School Hockey Player of the Year that is also presented by National Coney Island. I want to talk to you today about the criteria, what it takes to win the High School Hockey Player of the Year.
Well, John, I'm glad you brought it up, and it's something that we're actually talking about on the State Champ show proper this week. We use a bunch of different criteria. Obviously, we need your help out there. Go to statechampsnetwork.com. Make sure you vote. So you pick one of the four finalists. The person who wins the online vote automatically goes into our final four. The other three are selected by a committee, John Kidd, yours truly, and a few of the coaches out there as well. We generally like to come to a consensus. Now, what we look at is obviously your performance throughout the season, your team's performance throughout the season, level of competition. How often do we talk about it? Sometimes you don't look at a team's record, but you look at who they played. And a lot of times that can tell you if they're going to be dangerous come playoff time. Your big game performance. How did you do when the lights were shining at their brightest? And obviously, John, your team's success. Put it this way. The further your team goes in the playoffs, in my humble opinion, John, I think the better your chances of winning Player of the Year are. So we put all those criteria together once our Final Four is established, and that's when we all start talking about, well, I mean, basically the email goes like this. Who do you got? Yep. Really? I mean, I'm not joking. Who do you got? And we generally come to a consensus. It's not always unanimous. I mean, sometimes, John, I could talk to 10 different coaches and 8 of them say this guy and 2 say another guy. But for the most part, it seems to work for us.
We've talked in the last few podcasts about the seeding and the opening of the playoffs with Stevenson, Plymouth, now CC, Northville. This could factor into the High School Hockey Player of the Year if one of those players is knocked out first game.
No question about it. I mean, you take a look. I mean, there are 2 guys on the list just from the Stevenson-Plymouth game alone. No. And it, again...
And 2 on the CC Northville team, too.
You got it. And I think, John, that's part of what frustrates me. I mean, I've shared my frustration about it. It's not an ideal situation for fans. It's not an ideal situation for the players, the teams. It's not an ideal situation for the MHSAA. I don't know how it can be, but That's the way that it goes. And of course, we do have to put more weight into how far a player went. We have to. I mean, that's just doing the process right.
John, it was a pleasure again today.
No doubt about it, John. Always look forward to doing this. And I hear there's a rumor out there we're going to have a special guest with us next week. We'll wait and see about that.
Yeah, special guest and maybe some breaking news. Maybe. Well, we got to keep you guys on your toes.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
And before we go, I want to send a special shout out to the Michigan High School Hockey Coaches Association. They post our podcast on the Hockey Hub, and I like to say thank you for that. You know, we like to get the word out, so.
Those guys are so great, John. I'm so glad that you brought that up because, you know what? What we do could never be made possible without those guys. Boy, you send an email message, you send a text, they answer everyone. They tell you what's going on with their team, what's going on with other teams according to them. These guys are outstanding human beings.
And you were watching the State Champs Power Play podcast presented by National Coney Island. I'm Jonathan Kidd along with Sean Belegian. You guys have a good afternoon, and we'll see you on the rink.